Hi, this is a response to Gary, Do Not God, in relation to the video I made about what I called the Jesus gene, which in turn was a response to some stuff that 2bsirius had been talking about Dawkins, the selfish gene. You talk about a lot of stuff there, Gary, and some of it's, I mean, it's all interesting, because all your stuff's interesting, but some of it's crap, really, to be frank, and some of it's completely valid. There's too much to talk about in one go, and I only want to keep this short because I want to get on. But 4 things I want to just talk about. 3 of them are important. I want to talk a little bit about a phrase you used, which is projecting purpose. You said, I'm projecting purpose. I want to talk about that. You say that selfishness is, you say that I've referred to selfishness as an emotion. You say it isn't, so I want to say a little bit about that. And what was the 3rd thing? You talk about selfishness as the dominant metaphor. And there's a 4th thing, but I'll leave that till the end. Let's just start with that thing, selfishness is the dominant metaphor. I agree with you on that. I would agree with you. That does tend to be the dominant metaphor that we talk about, certainly when we're talking about genes, obviously, because that's how the book had the impact it had, you know, and all the quoting and misquoting and being around it is because it is a metaphor which we find attractive. And I would agree with you that a lot of human behaviour is overtly selfish. I would also agree with you that a lot of human behaviour is covertly selfish. Yes, I would agree with you. We often do actions which appear altruistic and appear self-sacrificing and appear to be acts of martyrdom and plain old fellow feeling, when actually we've got completely selfish motives at heart. I would absolutely agree with that. I don't agree with you at all like that. I think a lot of things we do are not selfish in any meaningful sense, really. But I would agree with you that it's the dominant metaphor. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. And another thing you say, what do you say? Projecting purpose. Yeah, you say that I'm projecting purpose because I have these different, after I've been talking about selfishness as a metaphor, I cite a number of other metaphors that, as far as I can see, they might not be dominant, but they're equally valid. If you're going to use anthropomorphic terms to talk about genes, it's fine. It's just a metaphor. You know, how can a gene be selfish? It hasn't got that kind of capacity. It's just a word. But if you're going to identify those actions as selfish, then you're going to be dishonest if you don't accept that other things that are going on at the biochemical level could correspond to other kinds of actions. And then you say that I'm projecting purpose onto the outcomes of those actions, perhaps. Yeah, maybe I am. Yeah, that's true. But if I'm doing it, Jesus, Gary, you really are doing it as well. All this stuff about humans being essentially desiring machines and essentially driven by our desire to serve ourselves or serve only those people closest to us, those kinds of desires. I mean, that's purpose. That's purpose. That's what that is. So, yes, we do. All of us have a tendency to project purpose, and I'm sorry to say you're as guilty as that as I am. And as I said in the previous video, the purpose that you tend to project onto not only humans and other animals, but also apparently on biochemical actions, the actions of genes. What you're very good at, as I've said before, identifying that particular project, the selfishness project, if you like. But it is a projection. You've got very articulate at laying out how that particular projection can be analysed. Others amongst us might have a kind of slightly larger repertoire of projective abilities or desires. Maybe I'm not convinced that projecting anything at all is a good idea personally, but given that we all do it, it doesn't seem to do any harm to have more than one, not to be a one-trick pony in that regard. The other thing I was going to say was about this thing about selfishness being an action, not an emotion. Well, I don't think it is really. I mean, I think it's an attribute that we give to an action. I don't think it's the action itself. If I take somebody, if I see somebody in the street and they've got, I don't know, an apple in their hand, and walk up to them and I take that apple away from them. Now you could say that that action is selfish, or you could say that that action is rude. You can say that action is all those kinds of things. But until you know what the action actually means, you know what that context is, what the relationship, what's actually going on there, then all you're doing is applying an emotional reading to an action that doesn't contain any of that. And it's the same thing with selfishness. And I think that's particularly true when you're talking about genes and you're talking about, as I say, biochemical actions, or even the actions of animals without a certain level of consciousness. It doesn't really make any sense to say that an animal with barely a brain in its head is being selfish. It's going through certain motions which we would interpret from our perspective, knowing that there's an alternative. From that perspective, saying that it's selfish, but it's not selfish in and of itself. It's not selfish for chemistry. Chemistry isn't selfish. It doesn't make any sense. It isn't selfish. It doesn't have a self. It doesn't have a self. Only things that have got a self can be selfish. Genes don't have a self. Lots and lots of animals don't have a self. We apparently do have a self. So we are capable of being selfish. Or not. Or not. And I would ask you, Gary, to ask yourself, are you selfish all the time? If you're absolutely honest to yourself, is everything you do driven by selfishness? Is everything you do driven by selfishness? Is that it? I mean, maybe it is. I doubt it, quite honestly. I think if you're honest, it's a bit of an act, really, I think. Okay, so the only thing I wanted to say, and this, I don't want to come across too rude here, Gary, to be honest, because as I say, I do like your videos a lot, and I've got a lot of respect for a lot of your opinions, I have to say, and I think we're probably in agreement about a lot of stuff, to be honest. But what I like about a lot of your videos is that you're very good at articulating an opinion. What I don't like about this video is that you claim it's not your opinion. You claim to be quoting Dawkins. You're saying a lot about Selfish Gene as if you know what the Selfish Gene is, but later in the video, Gary, you say yourself you haven't read the damn book. In fact, you say you haven't read any of Dawkins' books. Now, I don't have a problem with that. If you don't want to read Dawkins' books, you don't have to read any book at all. That's fine. I have no issue with that. I'm not only interested in listening to the voices of people who've read the same books I have, or any books at all. A lot of the videos that I value most are people who are struggling to find language of their own, with minimal contact to literature and that kind of stuff. But if you are going to cite a book and say that that's where your ideas belong, you need to have read the book. You really do. Because apart from anything else, a lot of the stuff you're saying here, Gary, is just not right. Some of the things you're saying about the book are just wrong, unfortunately. But I did enjoy your videos, both parts of it. So thanks for having that freedom of speech and exercising it so extensively.